as a planning commission, we're grateful for the privileges of living in North Logan, for this land of freedom, which we enjoy, and the rights and privileges we each have under the Constitution of this United States, which was established under thy hand. We're grateful for the officers and leaders of this city and ask that you bless each one. May this work tonight go quickly and may accomplish the things that we need to. Again, thank you for all that we have. And say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We'd like to welcome Kenny Reese down there.
Sorry, we're being recorded now.
He is going to replace, oh,
Do we need to do the pledge again?
do we?
I'm just kidding.
No.
Trying to
Kenny,
run out
welcome. He's
you.
going to replace our good friend Eric. And we'd like to thank Eric for all of the magnificent work he's done on this commission for the past 3 years. He's had thoughtful questions and such good insights. And thank you, Eric.
All right,
We'll
thank
miss you.
It's been a good experience.
What are you gonna do in retirement?
I'm going to Disney World.
Good.
Just kidding.
Good. Okay, we need to have a motion to adopt the minutes of, the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do I have to say the date again? The agenda for February 17th Planning Commission meeting.
Motion to adopt the agenda is outlined.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Me?
Jeff, sorry, I'll repeat that, Marie. Okay, now we need to approve the minutes of the December 2nd Planning Commission meeting, December 2nd, 2021. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read it, go over it. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I will move that we adopt the minutes as provided to us.
You have a second?
Second.
All right,
Since I wasn't
Jeff.
there, I can't, so.
Jeff made motion to approve the minutes as written and Eric
Yeah.
seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, done. All right. Follow-up issues on our previous meeting, Spencer?
Yes. So a couple things, the rezone that was considered and given a negative recommendation. The applicant has elected to relook at that and look at what zone. I would expect, no new application has been provided or submitted, but I would expect to see a different density being applied for that parcel. So they didn't go on to city council with that, with the Planning Commission recommendation. The water conservation plan also passed. Considering the tiered water rates and the timing of when people are moving in and out, it's a question raised by Jeff. That was also a concern for city council and staff, honestly. I think they approved it with kind of the stipulation, and Alan can correct me if I'm wrong, I wasn't there at the meeting, that we relook at this in a year or two maximum after we have our infrastructure in, and especially look at that fee schedule tiers. So we'll be revisiting that. So that leaves a very small window for people to move in, build the house, move out without doing their landscape. So hopefully that helps alleviate that concerns. We're going to be actively updating this, but it does give us some coverage in the chance that a home does get built. Chances are very slim that they would get built under this specific level of tiers that we had listed before we get our infrastructure in, because it's only for new subdivisions. So for a home to be built on a subdivision that we haven't received an application for is pretty, it's a pretty long shot. Also, the concept plan for the Maloof or the horse pasture subdivision, they're still working on the name. It was approved by the city council as well. I would expect to see a development plan come through in our next meeting. They already submitted some preliminary plans. We had some comments as staff. They're making some revisions before it comes to the planning commission. So did I miss anything there, Alan?
Okay. So read,
And mostly
Good.
we'll just be looking at the tiers, not the actual ordinance itself. Just the, if you remember, the cost amount was
Mhm.
very, very high. That's because it is a significant issue right now.
Mhm.
Once we get that infrastructure in, we'll be able to adjust that and still make it, it'll be still severe, but not as severe as we'd seen.
good. Okay. All right, let's go to item number 1. Spencer, you want to start us off? Give us some before the public hearing.
Yes, yep. So we have reviewed this in a past city council meeting. It wasn't last week, but it was the not last meeting, the meeting before. This is basically just going through our post division approval and making it a little more clear as to what would need to be submitted and the process going through in order to do that, and what code is going to be enforced with a little more specific citations. So, and this is only for improper or post-division approval of pieces of land that was split off without going through the subdivision process.
Okay. I guess I will read the rules for a public hearing. Um, Before you begin, please state your name for the record. Please speak into the microphone so that your comments can be recorded. Please limit your statements to 2 minutes. If you are also speaking on behalf of others, you may ask the chairman for more time. Please phrase your opinions in the forms of statements, not questions. A public hearing is your opportunity to express your opinions to the planning commission. It is not a time to ask questions and expect dialogue between yourself and the commission or city staff. Please address your comments to the commission, not to the public. The commission might ask questions about your comments in order for them to better understand you. If you have questions or need to discuss an issue, please meet with the planning commission members or the appropriate city staff member before the public hearing where dialogue can take place. You may provide a written statement as your input for a hearing. You may read your entire statement or summarize it. The 2-minute limit applies. You may provide a copy of a written statement to the city recorder. He will make copies for the commission. Written comments, if a copy is provided, become a part of the public record but are not included in the minutes of the meeting. All right. Do we have any public comment about this issue? No public comment. Okay, commission, any thoughts on this? We've
Yeah.
worked through this.
Right. So, and specifically in E, we're calling out 12D115. I thought we had broadened that because there's other sections within the municipal
You're right.
code.
Yep, you're right. I think we broaden it to just 12D if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think we did.
Yep.
Because
I don't know what- I must
114
have
would
missed
also
that.
apply.
Yep, I think it was just 12D.
Okay. And then what was decided on the Appendix D of the International Fire Code? Are we adopting that as a city, or are we just calling it out in here?
Right. I did speak with Craig on Appendix D and John Keller, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if we want to adopt the entire appendix. It's just basically taking standards from that to apply. And that's kind of what we have in our design standards manual, but that's something that we should take into effect.
Well,
As far as in this code,
but
we could take it
but
off.
the state specifically called out that it needs to be adopted by municipal code or the city or the governing the county. It states in there that it needs to be adopted. So does this meet that
No.
we've adopted it as a city?
No, this wouldn't count as adopting it. He's looking right here at paragraph E. That it has to have adequate access, conforming with access requirements in 12D, design standards, technical manual, and International Fire Code Appendix D. We would have to adopt that separately as well. We could remove this reference and just go with.
Well,
design
I'm
standards.
okay with it
I-
here. I'm just, this became a sticking point because we have not formally adopted it in the municipal code.
You're
Right.
saying that the
And
whole
we
code
couldn't-
is somewhere else.
So who would
Well-
adopt it? The city
well, the s-
council?
Yeah, we'd have to adopt it. We do it in a separate resolution, I believe. I don't know if that would be an ordinance or resolution. Other item associated with that is we've already adopted several portions of Appendix D within our design standards technical language. There's two ways to go about it. I talked with Greg and John will have to speak up. Those who don't adopt the entire appendix, or recommendation on each one of them. A la carte. What it applies to their city. So we should probably take the portions of appendix. Like, and adopt those in our design standards technical language. Or we can adopt the whole thing, but either way, we do kind of need to cater it towards more.
Mhm.
So, but Jeff's the fireman, so the state requires us to.
No. So we've adopted, or the state has adopted the 2018 International Fire Code. But in order to utilize the appendix or the appendices, the city or county would have to specifically adopt Appendix A, B, C, or D
Okay, so that's.
in
what you're
order
saying.
to enforce that or use that in their standards. We have not adopted that in North Logan City. So we either need to call out the things that we want from Appendix D, or the easy button is to say we adopt Appendix D, and that can fall in here. I'm great with it being in here. It makes it clear. It's easier for developers to understand. But the question that I'm bringing up is, are we choosing to adopt it as a city, or are we going to, as Alan mentioned, a la carte specific things and put those in the design standard?
Yeah, and I can bring that up as a point with the city council. I think we would have to adopt it as a separate either resolution or ordinance. I'm not sure on that,
Mhm.
but I'll bring that up with them and say, hey, ask what we want to do to proceed, and then we'd see another ordinance come down
Yeah.
to formally adopt it as a whole. And that way it wouldn't just be in this one specific piece of code. It would be development wide. It would be a standard adopted. So
Yeah, well, and that's what I liked about if the city chooses to adopt it, that it's there and it's in there. If it's just found in here, it could be, hid from other things that are out there, because this is specific to the
Yeah.
post division. And I
Right.
think we need to consider it as a city, but I'm curious, John, about your thoughts
Well,
with Appendix D.
talking with Craig, he said very few, he only knows of 2 cities that have adopted that appendix. But he recommends we do what Alan says, we just take choose what we want, put it in our design standards page.
Perfect.
Because this one here actually can be more restrictive. You might come up to a position where this, if you're gonna adopt this, you don't want some of the restrictions that are in there for further development.
Okay.
So Greg recommends
Is-
that we just take where we need to and put it in our design standards.
Yeah.
And just use that as a guide to build that up.
Isn't Appendix D just around the turnarounds and
Just turnarounds, links of roads.
the links of roads, which we tried to hold on to for our,
If that's
Which
what
is-
you want to do, then that's fine. His
Yeah.
recommendation is not to do it. Our stage.
not to adopt the whole thing.
More restrict down the road more than you want it to be.
Okay, yeah. Well, and that's where I think it needs to be done at the city council level of choosing to adopt or updating the design standard,
yeah,
rather than just having something in a post division thing that I do think, but I don't know.
yeah. So we'll
Oh,
see it too.
okay. Okay. All right.
But this still works if we leave it like this in this ordinance?
I think if I go to city, and depending on the opinion of the planning commission a little bit as well, if I go to city council and they seem to be leaning towards or away from adopting Appendix D and just adding more standards into our design standards, I probably would recommend striking that International Fire Code Appendix D and just probably leave it at International Fire Code if we're not going to adopt the whole thing, because
Yeah.
we probably wouldn't be able to hold somebody to Appendix D only if they're doing an improper post-division
That,
approval.
and that's my point, is having it here doesn't, I think there's valuable things in it. The troubling thing with the International Fire Code as it sits is it's in very general terms. And this is what we run into on the Strebel Wilson deal, that there's these general terms that it didn't give us the specifics that we needed to help with those design standards. Whereas Appendix D, that's where we can find the 750 feet and some of the turnaround options that you have in subdivisions that aren't found in the fire code itself. So one way or the other, I think it's got to be higher than in here. We can reference whatever higher place we put it in, and that's great. If we can incorporate those definitions that help us in the design, the DSTM, then we're accomplishing our intent for bringing it up in here.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. I'll bring that up and we'll get that refined depending on which direction they decide to go. If they decide to go design standards, we'll beef up our references. If they decide to adopt Appendix D, I'll leave the language as written.
Yeah.
Okay.
A question, John, what do the appendix of A, B, and C do? Are they different from D, or do they cover the kind of the same thing in different cities, different locations?
D would be water flows, what we're looking for water flow, how much water flow we have to use for a building or a complex, something like that. It's a guideline we can pull through what we actually need. So appendix are guidelines for us also. Give us something to look at and say, well, this is what everybody else recommends. So what are we going to do? And so when you guys build the road, that's the hard part. When you guys build the road, you need a black and white of what you want. People are going to pull you to the fire. What are you going to do? It's like that last subdivision. So it needs to be somewhere. If you adopt this, or it goes back to your standards, design standards, either way. But all the appendix are just guidelines that say you can adopt them. You don't have to adopt them. They're just references to help you out with what you need to do, because there's no reason out in the county to pull up, different standard, because you've got 5 houses out in the county somewhere and they're going to build a standard to the city. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So that's why they're all built different. That
Good.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure. So if continue on, if we just adopt the International Fire Code, then it covers everything.
No.
No.
National Fire Codes of wood, the appendix is different.
So, and the International Fire in the state of Utah specifically state, we've adopted the International Fire Code. However, in order to adopt or follow the appendices, you have the city or county has to specifically adopt those appendices. And what they are, so the Appendix D is related to distances. We get the width of the road, what a fire access road is. Well, right now, if you go and read the International Fire Code, it just gives some general terms about fire access road. Where we ran into problems on that recent one is I wanted to know, okay, well, what's a fire access road? Well, if I go to Appendix D, it gives feet. It says if you're 750 feet from another access point, you can have this width of a road. Those are the sorts of details that you find in the appendices, whereas the code, the International Code itself, just says have a fire access road.
Okay.
So that's why I think it's important that we have that somewhere. I don't think it should be in here only.
Right.
I think it needs to be in the design standard, or the city council needs to say, thus verily we adopt Appendix D.
Right. Agreed.
And it ought to happen sooner than later, I
Yes.
think,
Yep.
with everything else that's
So
going
yeah, if you're
on.
putting it in here, then
Yeah.
it needs to be
Yes,
somewhere else
Yeah.
as well.
yes.
Yep. We'd have to be pretty sure it was going to go through the process really quickly if we wanted to pass this ordinance.
And I think, again, kind of back to your point, Jeff, if you don't have that, then if with our case in point, we would struggle to deal with that in terms of particulars.
Right.
Yeah,
So
well,
this
Right.
is useful.
Yeah, that's why we had to say, okay, yeah, that, the only thing we could hold on to is what small definition of fire access road. And in our situation in the city, we needed a little more definition than maybe do. And John's exactly right. Out in the county, there just isn't a lot of those situations where you might need that depth or care. In our situation, I think we need some guidelines around those things, just for the size of the population, the types of structures and that we have.
Agreed.
Good. Any other thoughts on any of the other areas?
I mean, and my last comment,
Mhm.
I like having it here because if I'm a landowner and I'm caught in this situation, it is nice to say, okay, these are the things that the planning commission and the city council are going to look at and hold me to make it possible. And so I'm not opposed at all of having it there. I just do think that we need to get that stuff in our design standards.
Right.
And I think as a planning commission, it's good to have it here. Then we have
Yeah.
something to work
Well,
with.
if you have it all in one place, because I know I get this with regs, and you're like, I read this, and then you got to go over here, and then you go 3 different places. So having it consolidated is nice.
Yes, and we have some teeth to work with too here.
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts on any
Yeah,
other?
one other
part?
thing on 12D, can we write municipal code? Or just what that 12D represents? I know what it is, but
Yes.
the majority of
That
the,
makes sense.
yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's clear.
Yeah, that's the only thing
That's clear.
Okay.
Anything else?
Just a note, we had some discussion about surveys and process. I understood from that discussion that we wanted to keep the survey in because the 2 submittals were concurrent. We
Yeah,
still good with that? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
The discussion was around if they were going to come multiple times, then it
Right.
would be nice to give them a reprieve. But if they're only coming once, we got to
Okay.
do it.
Perfect. Just wanted to verify that.
Good. Okay, are we ready to make a recommendation? And a positive recommendation to the city council with these
Amended changes.
changes, concerns about the
Yeah.
fire code? Anybody want to,
Sure.
I'll
You want to
say,
do it? Go
no,
for
I was going to say, go ahead.
somebody do it?
Okay, then I'll say, Madam Chairman, I move that we send forth this adopted regulation to the city council with a positive recommendation.
With the concerns that we've had, not concerns, but
With the
Yeah.
noted changes.
with the
With the noted
noted
changes as we
additions
amended
and
it.
changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. I'd second it.
All right. Heron moved that we send this on to the city council with a positive recommendation. Eric seconded it. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, good. Number 2. Spencer, you want to tell us about number 2 again? I don't have to read this again, do I?
No.
Oh, good.
No, you covered it. You're good. No, this one's really straightforward. This is changing the submittal requirements from paper copies to digital copies.
All the way
So-
through.
Yep.
Everything.
For,
Yeah.
just about any land use application, design review, subdivision, things like that.
I'm curious, right now, well, I guess it says you have to for paper. Do you think, do you also get them as electronic all the time anyway?
Yeah, typically applicants will reach out, they'll call, they'll come in, and they'll ask how we'd like to receive those plans. And we usually say digital. The code says we're supposed to do paper, but people typically are asking us. We do get a few, it's a handful every year that are just really studious and read the code to every line, and they come in with their application and have a whole handful of printed plans that end up just being in the office. So this would make it so
Yeah. So,
people who talk to me and people who read the code would
Yeah.
submit the same way.
yeah, what it does, is it then reconciles what's going on in real life with what the code says.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Any more thoughts?
Good question, yeah. Would this eliminate any paper coming into you, or would they still be able to do that?
They still could. It just would eliminate that requirement. So
Okay.
if they felt like and a lot of times applicants will bring in, say a 24/36 or bring in several copies when they want to have a discussion and talk over things, so that people can make notes, but it would just remove the requirement
Okay,
for that.
Yeah.
And we do need to open and close, I think, the public hearing as well, even though before we make a
Okay, well-
motion, just a note.
Okay. No more comments from the public hearing end? All right. Commission, are we ready to make a recommendation on this?
yes.
I asked, didn't I ask? Oh, I opened this. I'm sorry.
She closed it.
Okay, I closed it. I'll open it again. We are ready for the public hearing to discuss. Good. That's right. So we opened this public hearing and now we're going to close this public hearing. That's right.
Yeah, somebody's on that chair back there.
That way it's on the record.
I
too.
think we're ready to close this public hearing on the digital copy issue. And I would like somebody from the commission to do something so we can get on with
All
this.
right.
Oh.
Well, I'll go.
It's your
Okay.
last chance.
I'll make a motion then for a positive recommendation to modify North Logan City Code Title 12 to modify these requirements for paper copies to instead be submitted as PDFs, as electronic copies.
I'll second.
All right. Eric made a motion to send on a positive recommendation to the city council to modify the requirement for paper copies to be submitted for subdivision design review and other applications to allow for plans to instead be submitted as a PDF. And Jeff seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Thank you. Moves on to city council.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other staff business, Spencer?
No, nothing, nothing new.
Okay, any other planning commission business? All right, I guess we could have thanked Eric at the end of this, but we'll thank him at the end too. So,
Okay.
all right, we stand adjourned then.
So we need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion. Who would like to? Okay,
Madam Chairman, I move we adjourn this planning commission meeting.
all right, it's been moved and
Second.
Second.
seconded to adjourn. Aaron moved,
One. Yep.
Jeff
Jeff, aye.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Good job.
Short and plain.